And I scrambled up out of the depths of that deep place I was, and I knew that was my answer. And so then I'm like, yes, but how? And so, again, I kept treading the path. And that just be love, I found out, was more important than anything I could have ever heard. If the voice of God only spoke to me once in my life, and that was it, that would have been well worth it. You see, here's what I found out. I said I wanted self-love, and I wanted the kingdom of heaven. I had to get my ego out of the way. I had to lose my identity as the financial wizard, you know, and the business success woman and all that. And I had to lose my identity and my pride. I had to lose all of that and be brought down very small till there was nothing left but God. And I always thought that if I humbled myself, I would lose my power and lose myself. What I found was quite the opposite. By humbling myself, I gained humility, and by gaining humility, I found who I was born to be. And that is love personified. Not something in my head anymore, in my heart. And so a lot of people say, well, Jane, how'd you do it? You know, how'd you do it? Well, I vowed that if I got this one down, this how to love yourself, I was going to share it. And that is why I wrote the book, Your 3 Wishes. I tell my story in general terms. And I also tell what I did to learn to love myself. And in that book is a 40-day to love program, and it's pretty much what I did. And I can tell you the first thing I did, I started saying, God, you are the love of my life. God, you are the love of my life. And then, Jane, you are the love of my life. So back and forth and back and forth. And it took me months to embed that. And then, so I would stay focused on God because, you know, we go out in our life and what happens? We might have prayed in the morning or meditated or said those statements that make us feel alive with love. And then we go into the office and the first thing that happens, well, you know, sometimes I say some really bad words, you know. And I'm like, whoa, where's the love, Jane? You know, so I have posted on my computer screen, sitting at my phone and taped onto my car, little index cards that have this statement of what it is I'm trying to embed because, you know, we were hypnotized, right? We were born these perfect little spirits. But then our parents, the world at large, our community, coded us over with our belief system, right? And I'm not saying this was a negative thing at all. It just is. That set up our reality. And I know from my studies in neurolinguistic programming that all of our reality, well, 90% of it, 90% of our reality and our belief systems, especially our emotional responses and belief systems, are formed by the time we are 4 years old. So guess what? Most of us have a 4-year-old running our lives. And sometimes we act like it. So the bottom line is that if we stop and say, okay, this reaction, where's it coming from? And get to the root cause of that and say, well, was that something I want to claim as mine or do I want to reshape it? That can be done. That can be done. I've done it. You can do it. Isn't that bad? You just got to be in a lot of pain to really want it, or a lot of joy. You just got to really want it. Just got to really want it. And I know there's a big payoff from keeping your eye single on God. It says to keep thine eye single, right? Okay. So in my quest for fulfilling, just filling myself with God, started, I don't know, about 3 years ago I made that decision to flood myself with God. Just flood myself with God. Flood it. Flood. Just let it overwhelm me. So that hypnotism that I got as a child, and we all get, doesn't mean they were bad. I got some beautiful messages too. You know, I picked and choose which ones were going to work, you know, were good, that were keepers. And then I just started filling myself with God, filling myself with God. And amazing miracles started happening. I always say this, if I set out to correct some aspect of my being that I no longer want because it isn't serving me or anyone else, and maybe that point of the distance I'm trying to reach might be just from here to a yard in front of me. And of course, I'm speaking in metaphor, right? And as I put my feet under my prayers and take solid action to change that behavior pattern into something else, something amazing happens. I'll be standing a month later having forgotten about it, gone through, corrected that situation, and recreated what I wanted as a new response. And I'll be standing at the kitchen window doing the dishes, or I'll be talking to a friend, and all of a sudden I go, oh my God. And I say that, oh my God, oh my beloved God. Because in the process of getting from point A to B, God took me from point A to point Z and cleaned up a million other things all at once. I don't know how it works. I just know that it does. So keep thine eyes single. And I had that little note card stuck in my car and all over the house in my office so I could just return my thoughts to God, return my thoughts to love in my heart. If I have it in my head, I'm going to feel it in my heart. If I have it in my heart, it's going to sprout out everywhere. So, miracles happen along the way. There's a story I want to tell you all, and I'm just going to tell it anyway, whether I have time or not. Because it's a beautiful story. This was about 2 years ago after I had been on this Flood Myself with God process for a solid year. And it was an early April evening. Beautiful evening. I mean beautiful. Sun was setting, but there was a bitter, bitter, bitter wind in the air. Cold. You know how that can be. It looks like springtime, but you walk outside and you're like, fooled. So I'm sitting at home, and it's around, I don't know, it's later in the evening. And there was an event I was scheduled to attend about an hour away in time. Just that I could have sat around the house, you know, which is what I was doing. But this little voice tells me to get in my car and go up to Rainbow Blossom, which for those of you not around here, it's a little Whole Foods store, health food store. It's maybe 5 miles from my house. It tells me go up there and get some figs, and I'm like, you gotta be kidding me, you know? But I don't know. And so I'm like, I'm not going to do that. I'm going to sit here. And they go, no, get your dog, get in the car, and go up to Rainbow Blossom and buy some figs. I'm like, okay, you know? So I'm like, all right, well, I'll do it. I've learned to kind of pay attention to these things. So I get in the car, and another odd thing says, go this odd route that I normally don't like to go. It says, go that route. So I did. I went the odd route, go into Rainbow Blossom, leave my little dog in the car, poke around in there for a while, buy the figs, you know. And I'm looking around, I'm like, well, there's nothing happening here. I don't know why you sent me here, you know. And I get back in my car, and I put the key in the ignition, and something just went, like, whew, I felt it. It said, go home the other way. I'm like, go home the other way. Go home the different way, the one that'll take you around by the freeway. Okay. And so I did. I went home the other way, and I'm driving along, just going home. And out of the corner of my eye, in the peripheral field of my vision, walking on the opposite side of this 4-lane highway that is about, by now it's about 1/4 of a mile beyond the freeway. I just, out of my peripheral vision, see a man walking with a child on his shoulders and another child trailing behind him, a young child. And it appeared in my field of vision this was a Hispanic man, you know, walking like this with these children. And I thought, and my first thing said was, go see if they need help. But then my mind got involved, right? Oh, you're not supposed to do that. You know, blah, 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 blah. You're not supposed to stop and ask men for help, blah, blah. You know what I mean, all those social things. And so I'm trying to tune it out, and I keep driving. I keep driving, and suddenly my mind says, turn around, turn around. And so I did. I turned around and made a U-turn at the intersection where I would normally turn towards my street. But I made this U-turn, and I went back. And on my way back, just at the exit of the freeway, I noticed a disabled vehicle. And something told me that must be their car. And I kept going, and I pulled in front of the man, and I got out, had my little dog in my arms, and shouted back at them, do you all need some help? And the man said, oh, thank God you stopped. He says, I was praying someone would stop. He said, I just picked my children up from the hospital. They'd been in the hospital. And my car broke down, and my cell phone doesn't work. And I said, oh, please let me give you a ride somewhere. And so we get the children, we buckle them into the seat belts, and they're kind of wondering what's going on here. You know, who is this woman and what are we doing? And the guy gets in the car, he gets in the passenger seat, buckles up, and looks at that thing that's on my dashboard that says, keep thine eye single. He says, oh, look at that. He said, because you were looking out for God, God was looking out for me.